Our ancestor Joseph was the favorite son of his father Jacob. As the story is told in Genesis, Joseph's brothers were so jealous of him that they sold him into slavery in Egypt. He spent decades away from home, and during that time he worked his way up the hierarchy of Egypt, to become second in command of the entire kingdom. And years later, when he reconnects with his brothers, they can hardly recognize him. He has to reveal himself. He says, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" That might be the single most potent verse in the Torah these days. I am Joseph, a proud descendant of Israel. I am Joseph, who achieved great success in a land not my own. But what happened to the world I once knew? That same feeling was put into words by Dante Alighieri. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward path had been lost. To be a Jew today surely does not mean what we expected it would. In the story we are all living, the straightforward pathway has been lost. We wonder what happened to the world we once knew. How the heck did it get to be like this? Rabbi Ed Reddig taught, to be a good rabbi is to see the person standing before you and to understand the journey that person is on, to understand the story that they're living. As I speak with so many of you, it certainly seems to me that there has been a rupture in our collective narrative, our shared journey. For so many of us, the dissonance and dislocation between the world as we expected it to be and the world we find ourselves in makes us feel untethered and uncertain and unsafe. So what do we do when our story takes a radical turn? Min hametzar karatiya. From a very narrow place we call to you, God, especially on this day. And we pray that you will answer us from a wide open space. Friends, the world that we knew is gone. For many of us, as we grew up, we expected that the world would continue to grow more peaceful, more just, and more free. Here in America, the Jewish story in the second half of the 20th century seemed a departure from the patterns of Jewish history. Here we enjoyed freedom and acceptance and full integration into society. Some have referred to it as a golden age, and we thought it would continue forever. The creation of the state of Israel was also a departure from the patterns of Jewish history. We achieved independence and mastery over our own fate. Israel was strong and secure, and for those of us who cherished the Oslo process, peace between Israelis and Palestinians seemed to be just around the corner. But so much for that. Jewish life today is sadly defined by a loss of security, both literal and figurative, by the breakdown of American institutions that we have traditionally relied upon to keep us safe, by the unexpected rise of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, by fears about Israel's security and questions about its future as a Jewish state. Now, fortunately, I have a solution for you. Stop expecting that the world will somehow go back to the way it was, that this blip will somehow be rectified. We no longer live in a golden age, so we have to prepare ourselves for this new era of Jewish existence. In 1982, Rabbi David Hartman wrote what has become one of the great essays about the contemporary Jewish experience. It's called Auschwitz or Sinai. Rabbi Hartman offers Auschwitz and Sinai as the twin poles of Jewish existence. He poses the question, do we want to be Auschwitz Jews, looking backward at our narrative of suffering tied to the past, constantly trying to overcome the worst of our history? Or do we want to be Sinai Jews? Sinai is the mountain midway between Egypt and the Promised Land, where, as the story goes, God gave us the Torah, which we have treasured and passed from generation to generation, so that we could pursue the greatest of our people's aspirations, caring for those in our circle and beyond it, building a society of justice, making peace among people, always committed to the idea that the world can be better than it is today. I want to be a Sinai Jew. But the world keeps dragging us back into the identity of being Auschwitz Jews. 2 young Israeli embassy staffers murdered on the streets of our nation's capital, an elderly Jew burnt to death while protesting for our hostages in Boulder, the Jewish governor of Pennsylvania's home firebombed just hours after his family's Seder, a Jew hunt on the streets of Amsterdam before a soccer match, a New York City mayoral candidate who vows to arrest the Prime Minister of Israel, and you all know that I could list an endless string of incidents from the past year. And of course, our hostages are still underground, starving and suffering, and God only knows what else after 718 days. As Yossi Klein Halevi said, we feel caught between right-wing anti-Semitism, which glorifies Nazis, and left-wing anti-Semitism, which accuses us of being Nazis. We wonder what has happened to the world we once knew. The straightforward path has been lost. So how can we live and thrive in this new reality? First, we can raise strong children. About 6 months ago, I stood on this bima about to give a Shabbat sermon that began with the story of my first visit to Auschwitz. And then I looked down at the front row, where my 7-year-old daughter Goldie was sitting. I knew that our children would one day learn about all the terrible events of our history. But I did not expect that at that tender age, our sweet girl might ask me, "Daddy, what's Auschwitz?" Thankfully, Goldie was absorbed in a book she had brought. And like some of you, didn't pay much attention to her father's sermon. But I wasn't off the hook. Because just a few weeks later, Haley and I were discussing the latest incident in current events, and we didn't quite realize that our son George was listening. He picked up on an unfamiliar word and asked, "What's anti-Semitism?" And I confess to you today that I avoided the question. I desperately wanted to keep them innocent, just for a little while longer. I wanted them to continue to feel safe in the world. There would be plenty of time, I knew, for them to learn all the dark chapters of our story. Maybe you've had a similar experience. A congregant told me recently, "I've raised my kids to believe that the world is good and that people are good. But I'm starting to question that now." Another said to me, "I've been thinking a lot about how I speak with my kids. Should we acknowledge that we live in a world where there's hate based on our religion and give our kids strategies for living our best lives in the face of hate? Or should our focus be on ensuring that our kids and our community know that we can overcome hate, even if we unfortunately cannot eradicate it?" We all want our children to grow up feeling safe. And at the same time, we cannot be naive. I have realized that I am not fulfilling my responsibilities to my children if I don't teach them that they may one day be in danger simply because they're Jewish. Our goal in this new era should be to raise proud Jewish kids who are also equipped to live in the world. Joshua Hoffman writes, "It's time to teach our children not just how to be liked, but how to be strong. So let us teach them both Jewish pride and Jewish wariness." I would suggest that the proper recipe is this: 3 acts of Jewish pride for every 1 message of Jewish safety. An act of Jewish pride can be any Jewish act as long as it is accompanied by positive messages of pride and affirmation. I'm inspired by the congregant who said to her daughter right here on our bima at the conclusion of her bat mitzvah ceremony, "Living a Jewish life is a choice, a beautiful, conscious, rooted choice." What a wonderful message of Jewish pride. So try this. The next time you're driving your kids to Kesher, tell them why being Jewish is important to you. Or when you sit down, to Rosh Hashanah lunch or dinner this evening with your family and friends, when better to speak about your Jewish pride? As you know, here at TI, we lean into Jewish joy and Jewish pride every Shabbat, every holiday, every life cycle event. Each week, our bar and bat mitzvah students speak movingly about their Jewish pride right here on this bima. And we know that we have a responsibility to equip our teens with the skills to live as proud and careful Jews in this new era as well. Second, friends, we have to write our own story. Like so much else in life, as Cantor said, we have little control over us, but I believe that we have ultimate control over how we respond. As my wife Haley recalled, my grandparents were literal Auschwitz Jews, but they were not afraid. The worst aspect of all of this anti-Semitism, aside from the anti-Semitism itself, of course, is the way that others try to define who we are. Each incident threatens to rewrite our story, both for ourselves and for the world. So let us reclaim our agency. Zionism is, among other things, an insistence that we Jews will not let anyone else determine who or what we are, that we will take control of our identity and our fate. No one else gets to tell our story. I refuse to allow Hamas or protesters or political candidates or middle schoolers drawing swastikas on lockers to determine what it means to be Jewish. Only we get to do that. Our narrative may be in crisis, but our identity most certainly is not. Last year, a member of our congregation had a daughter preparing to apply to college. The family reached out to a prominent figure in the Jewish world for some advice. And the response they got was, maybe she should think about a school down south. I get it. Vanderbilt or the University of Alabama have become attractive places. And who wouldn't want to protect their child? But I could not disagree more with this advice. If our goal is not just to survive, but to thrive, it cannot possibly be good for the Jewish people if we abandon the Ivy League, or if we refuse to engage in dialogue with our Muslim neighbors, or if we distance ourselves from our historic social justice partners, or if we abandon one political party or the other. I have been in those difficult conversations many times over the past couple of years, and sometimes it's very painful. And I know some of you have been in those rooms too, in your Manhattan law firms, or in Hollywood studios, or elsewhere. We have to be in the room. We owe it to ourselves and to our future to engage, not to back away. And I've seen that. I've seen inspiring Jewish activism right here. Last year, swastikas started appearing in various locations in Weston Middle and high schools. And at first, the administration and leadership did not have the wherewithal to address the issue appropriately. But a small group of vocal, active, and proud parents formed. A number of you are right here in this room. They rallied community support, held town hall meetings, and spearheaded educational initiatives. They partnered with the school district to help our leadership understand, respond to, and hopefully minimize anti-Semitic attacks. And by the end of the year, when yet another anti-Semitic incident happened, every single facet of the community, from the students to the parents to the school leadership, acted precisely as one would hope. The entire community was aligned against such acts, and they knew just what to do. We have more friends than we realize, and I couldn't be more proud. And third, friends, we must start a new chapter. For we are simply the latest actors in a long drama that is both heroic and tragic. Throughout the long history of our people, whenever the world as we knew it ruptured, we have picked ourselves up and written for ourselves a new story of Jewish life. The temple stood in Jerusalem for centuries, and when it was destroyed, we created the synagogue-centered Judaism that we know today. Many of our ancestors fled poverty or persecution to start a new chapter here in America. And of course, out of the ashes of the Holocaust, we built the state of Israel. So now let us write a new chapter about what it means to be Jewish in America today. And I pray that Israel will write a credible story about the future of Gaza and the Middle East. Like the 4 children of the Passover Haggadah, the Auschwitz Jew and the Sinai Jew are mere archetypes. At times, we may feel compelled to play the role of the Auschwitz Jew, watching the news for the next act of anti-Semitism, focused on threats and prioritizing the protection of our people. But I hope we will choose to spend more time being Sinai Jews, engaged in planning the next joyous simcha, booking our next trip to Israel, committed to social justice and living the highest ideals of our tradition rather than the worst nightmares of our history. So let's remember why we show up here on a day like this. We are here to sit with others who share the same sense of collective dislocation and confusion that we feel. We're here because the feeling of being with hundreds of other Jews, singing and praying together, especially on this day, is something that can scarcely be described. We're here because we cherish moments of exquisite Jewish joy and are committed to that most essential of Jewish yearnings, hope. We're here because we want to love our neighbors, not fear them. We're here because we know that Judaism is our path to living a good life and to improving our world. We are here because God gave us a mission to bring light to all the dark places of the earth, and we are here because we are dedicated to the covenant, the eternal and unbreakable relationship between God and the Jewish people. These are the highest ideals of our tradition, gifted by God to us at Sinai, and passed from generation to generation into our capable hands. That's the Judaism we want to live and to teach to our children. Friends, the Psalms were written thousands of years ago by poets who knew difficult times. For them, too, the straightforward path had been lost. And even as they walked through the valley of the shadow of death, they knew that God was with them, always. And so the words of Psalm 118 are particularly appropriate for this Rosh Hashanah of the Jewish year 5786. Min hametzar karati ya, anani bamerchav ya, Adonai li lo ira, maya aseli adam. God, we cried out to you from a narrow place called Egypt. You answered us, lifted us out, and revealed your purpose to us at a wide open space called Sinai. God is with us. We will not be afraid. We shall fear no human being, for we are here to fulfill God's purpose. Ken Yehiratzon.